Friends, today I'm about to tell you a story you've probably never heard before. A story that might make your spine tingle with fear, and might even make you question everything you thought you knew about the world. This is the story of a little girl who always chose paths that seemed strange and terrifying to most. But one day, something happened in her life that made her come back after death itself. To remind us all, what happened to her? What secrets did she carry that even death couldn't erase? As you listen, you'll realize that sometimes the things that happen to us don't just stay confined to our dreams. The secrets, the fear, and the lessons from this story will come alive in a way that makes you see the world and death itself in a new light. The girl who knocked from the grave. The first time Ethan heard the knocking, it was just after midnight. At first he thought it was the wind against the window, or maybe a branch scratching the glass. But then it came again, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Each one deeper, colder, like something striking wood from beneath the earth. He sat up in bed, his breath clouding in the air. The house was freezing, though he hadn't left the window open. He stared toward the sound, heart hammering, but saw nothing, just the faint glow of the moon spilling through the curtains. Then, faintly, a girl's voice whispered from outside, "Let me in." Ethan lived alone on the edge of town, next to the old Briarwood cemetery. He'd moved there only a month ago after his mother's death, looking for solitude. The cottage was cheap, quiet, and surrounded by endless rows of ancient gravestones. The realtor had warned him the place had a history, but he'd brushed it off. Ghost stories didn't scare him. Until tonight, he got up, grabbed a flashlight, and walked to the front door. The knocking had stopped. Everything was silent except for the slow, creaking moan of the trees. He opened the door. No one was there. The yard was empty. The fog rolled in thick waves across the cemetery, curling around the tombstones like fingers. The flashlight beam cut through the mist but showed nothing, no footprints, no movement. Ethan laughed nervously. Great, I'm losing it. He locked the door and went back to bed. But before he could drift off to sleep, the knocking started again. It went on, every night after that. Always around midnight. Always 3 knocks. And always followed by that same faint, pleading whisper, "Let me in." He started recording it on his phone. Each night, the sound grew louder. Sometimes the voice seemed closer, as if standing right outside his window. Sometimes he could swear he heard fingernails scraping the wood. He told himself it was just the wind, or his imagination. But the fear was real, sharp and heavy, growing worse each night. By the 6th night, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He decided to find where the sound was coming from. He waited by the window, flashlight in hand. At exactly 12:03 a.m., it started again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, it wasn't at the door. It was coming from the ground. He followed the sound out into the fog-drenched cemetery, barefoot, his flashlight trembling in his hand. The knocks were clearer now, echoing softly beneath the soil, leading him to an old grave near the edge of the property. The stone was cracked, the name barely legible under layers of moss. He brushed the dirt away. Emily Rose Hartman, 1899 to 1915. As he read the name, the air turned icy. His flashlight flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Silence, then a whisper, right behind him. "Please, help me get out." Ethan spun around. No one, only the fog. But when he looked back down, the ground was shifting, small clumps of dirt rising, moving, breathing. He stumbled backward, tripping over a root. The earth trembled as something pressed up from beneath. The knocking started again, this time so loud it vibrated through the soil. Then came a hand. Pale, bloodless fingers pushed through the dirt, followed by a second hand clutching the edge of the grave. A girl's face rose slowly from the darkness, skin gray and cracked, hair clinging wetly to her skull, eyes open and empty. Ethan froze. He couldn't scream. He couldn't move. The girl spoke again, voice trembling like wind through broken glass. "You heard me," you answered. He ran. He didn't stop until he was back inside, slamming the door behind him and locking every bolt. His heart felt like it would burst out of his chest. He turned all the lights on, gasping, shaking uncontrollably. But when he looked out the window, she was standing in the yard. Emily Rose Hartman, the dead girl. Her tattered white dress fluttered in the wind. Mud dripped from her hair. And in her hand, she held a small wooden box. Ethan's breath caught. The girl tilted her head, eyes hollow yet filled with sorrow. "It's yours," she whispered. She placed the box on the porch, then slowly sank back into the fog until she was gone. For hours, Ethan stared at the door, too terrified to open it. When the first rays of dawn touched the sky, he finally gathered the courage to step outside. The box was still there. It was old, carved with strange symbols he didn't recognize. Inside was a folded letter, yellowed with age. The handwriting was faint but legible. To whoever lives here now, my name is Emily Rose Hartman. I was buried alive in 1915. They thought I was dead, but I wasn't. I screamed, I clawed, I knocked. No one heard me. Until you, please, don't let them bury me again. Ethan dropped the letter, his pulse racing. He turned to look at the graveyard and froze. Every single grave had been disturbed. The earth across the cemetery was moving, as if something beneath was waking up. And then came the knocking. Not one, not three, hundreds. Knock, knock, knock. A chorus of fists pounding from below, desperate to be heard. Ethan ran back inside, slammed the door, and called the police. But when they arrived, the graves were untouched, smooth, quiet, peaceful. No signs of digging, no sign of the girl or the box. They told him he was dreaming, hallucinating from stress. The letter, gone. The box, gone. But Ethan knew what he'd seen, what he'd heard. He packed his things and left Briarwood that night, vowing never to return. A month later, a new family moved into the cottage. They laughed at the rumors about the grave girl. The father even joked, "If she knocks, we'll just let her in." On their first night, as the clock struck 12, the youngest daughter woke to a sound coming from outside her window. Knock, knock, knock. She sat up, listening wide-eyed. Then a soft, trembling voice whispered through the glass, "Please, let me in." She smiled sleepily and said, "Okay." When her parents found her bed empty the next morning, the window was open. Tiny footprints led into the fog, straight toward the cemetery. And on the doorstep, there was a small wooden box, still dripping with fresh mud.